Hello and welcome to the debut episode of It's Not a Buffalo, the show where we discuss the science and technology that will save the world. My name's Ben, I'm made entirely of deoxyribonucleic acid, and joining me is Jack, he's made of hope and coffee. Jack, how are you?
There's a giant spike in the audio from when I said toi at the beginning of our count-in for this recording. It looks
That's
beautiful.
good to know. Yeah,
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I think I've got some great stories for the show ahead. Have you found anything interesting in the news today or over the last few weeks?
Yeah, there's a couple of fun sciencey things that have happened in the last couple of weeks, and I suppose we should give like 30 seconds to Notre Dame.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, that's the thing that happened.
I was thinking, I mean, when the story popped up, one of my first thoughts was, I'm so glad that I got to see it just a few weeks ago. Did you go
inside?
We went inside and saw it all, and it is an incredibly beautiful building, and it's devastating to see what's happened, actually. But
yeah, Did you see the video of the French people singing Ave Maria?
I did.
The Spire film?
Yeah, Tara sent that on to me. It really is. Moving. And I see that there's already been a couple of French billionaires have agreed to put 300 million euros into restoring it and fixing the damage. To which a lot of people have replied, if only they'd do that for other disasters such as planet Earth and climate change.
Didn't they try that though with Trump? Like loads of people put money into him, and
that's true. I mean, he's still got 2 years left at least, so maybe he's just lots of plotting in the background, and then it's all going to be a massive reveal towards the end.
He takes off his hat, and it's like I was a bum all along.
Oh, that would be the greatest twist of American politics ever.
The weirdest Yogi Bear episode ever. What are we going to do with all this capitalism, boo-boo?
Oh,
I want to say capitalism basket, but it doesn't quite work.
No, not quite.
Like
picnic, capitalism. Yeah, there's like one extra syllable. Yeah.
There's too many syllables.
It's a shame. Yeah. If only they'd had that in mind when they were writing that show.
You could do like a really dodgy Italian stock market, boo-boo. That would work. That's the right number of syllables.
It is. Okay, we have a new catchphrase. And this will be our... Once we've launched this podcast, we're going to relaunch Yogi Bear. We're going to get the rights to it somehow. They can't be that expensive, right?
Are they still owned by Is it Hasbro? It's one of the big cartoon lots. No, Hasbro toys, aren't they?
The Cartoon Network?
Yeah, it probably is.
Also, I love that our 30 seconds of Notre Dame has turned into talking about Yogi Bear reboots.
Well, I mean, what else good has come out of this week?
Black holes.
Oh,
that was pretty cool.
Black holes, which is ironic because stuff never good comes out of them. But
I know
that was really cool, though. I like the zoomed out photo. I think you posted.
Yeah, I posted the NASA article that had them both, and obviously everyone's kind of zoomed into the Eye of Sauron, which is the actual black hole, and I posted the zoomed out one where you can just see all this mass of orange matter being warped into this tiny little black hole in the middle, and I think that one looks incredible. And it's just, I mean, the numbers are just mind-boggling. It's 6.5 billion times bigger than the sun. It's bigger than the entire solar system, and it's 55 million light years away. And obviously it has the huge event horizon and the 5 Schwarzschild radius, which is some bit I didn't understand. But then I did see that someone was tweeting about how they were annoyed it was quite blurry. And I was like, give them a break.
I can explain what a Schwarzschild radius is. This is the thing I can bring to this conversation. So a Schwarzschild radius is the radius that a ball of matter of any given size would have to be in order for it to implode into a black hole.
Right.
So it's the point at which the gravity will overcome the electrical force that pushes shiz apart.
And I think one important thing to talk about is the photo that was going around of Dr. Katie Booman, I think that's how you say her name, who was the person who wrote the algorithm that allowed them to find the black hole. And it depresses me so much that despite her incredible accomplishment, and she's only 29 and she's made this one of the biggest scientific breakthroughs just from the media coverage, just judging from the media coverage. And she's immediately been attacked by trolls and people creating fake social media accounts for her. And it's just awful, some of the response that she's had when she's made this massive achievement.
Yeah, it kind of sucks to be a woman on the internet in general. That's the impression I get. Yeah, but more power to her. Like, algorithms stick around longer than trolls.
That's true, and actually, you know what? This leads me on to the next story I really want to discuss, which is another great story about women in science, which is that the Abel Prize, which is called the Nobel Prize, the equivalent of a Nobel Prize in mathematics, was won by a woman for the first time, whose name I don't think I can pronounce. It's Karen. I know the Karen, but then it's Caligula Uhlenbeck of the University of Texas won this prize just a couple of months ago, I think.
Am I thinking of Fields Medal then?
No, this is the Abel Prize. It's 6 million Norwegian kroner. First awarded in 2003 to one of the 19th century Norwegian mathematician Niels Henrik Abel, and a very prestigious prize from what I can gather. But yeah, a woman won it for the first time, and I think. So her work is the fundamental work in geometric analysis and gauge theory, which has dramatically changed the mathematical landscape. I think you're more of a maths aficionado than I am. So can you explain to the listeners what that actually means?
What field theory is?
No.
Or just, like, I can't explain her prize at all. Like, there's no... there's no hope of me doing that.
No, probably not. You know what, I'm going to find the actual... I don't know if she got any specific... if it was for a specific study or anything, or just for the amount of work that she's done. I think it's one of those kind of like lifetime achievement awards. But the only thing it says is she covered fundamental work in geometric analysis and gauge theory. What's your next story, Jack?
So mine was, I saw it today on NASA's story on Facebook. They were just surveying the atmosphere of the moon and all of the dust and gas and stuff that circles it. And they accidentally found evidence of water. On
the moon?
Yeah, for listeners at the moment, Ben has just expressed shock facially.
I forgot you could see me. I'm on a video call and Jack isn't, so Jack can see me and I can't see him.
Yeah.
We should also say for the listeners, because obviously we don't have any yet, because this is the debut episode, that I am based in one European country and Jack is based in another. And the first people to guess correctly have the satisfaction of knowing they were the first people to guess correctly, but they'll never have that confirmed by us because we don't want to be stalked. So they actually won't have the satisfaction of knowing they guessed correctly. Maybe they'll just know internally that they got it right.
Someone was talking about unreciprocated love to me the other day, and I pointed out that unreciprocated love is stalking.
Yes, probably. I suppose it depends on what you do with your unreciprocated love. Are you just looking at a picture of them on your wall?
Oh yeah, it's definitely... It's a scale, isn't it? Like, if it's just having a poster up, then, you know, that's quite normal if they're a celebrity. If they're, like, your neighbour, that's weird.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I'd say.
This definitely isn't just, like the astronaut waste from the first moon landing that were just left there floating around because there's obviously nowhere else for it to go. Because I presume they just eject that out into space because there's no point in carrying it with them.
Yeah.
Because that's going to look really dumb if NASA make this announcement and then turn around and say, actually, it's just 70-year-old urine.
Amen.
I met a guy called Eamon over the weekend. Very nice guy. As part of the challenges, I went to a leadership academy over the weekend, and one of the challenges was to draw your name in pictures. And he tried to draw hands praying and Superman, so it was Amen. But he did a really bad job, so no one got it.
Hieroglyphs?
Hieroglyphs would have worked. I kind of did hieroglyphs.
Hieroglyphs would work.
I was quite proud of mine, actually. So I did, see if you can get this, I did a picture of a hen. Well, actually, you'll obviously get it.
I do know your name, so...
Yeah, it was a picture of a hen and a picture of a basketball and then an arrow, or like a kind of swapping round arrow underneath
I like
them,
it. I like it, yeah.
But I do have a way to bring this back. Father George Rutler, pastor of the St. Michael the Archangel Church on West 34th Street in New York, said the state of the Catholic Church in Ireland was a warning to Catholics in the United States. And that he also said that Druids danced in the street when abortion was legalized. And I love the idea that this American just...
Druids danced in the street?
Yeah, he just thought that a load of Druids ran out of the woods and were dancing on... Presumably they ran out of the woods and then all the way into Dublin and into the other cities and just started dancing because abortion was legalised, because we all know how much Druids really cared about women having a choice over their own bodies, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there you go, bringing it back to liturgy. Now you have to link on the next story using Druids somehow.
Okay.
No pressure.
Challenge accepted.
No pressure.
I think we'd all consider the old gods to be the gods of the Druids, right?
Yes.
Saturn's moon, called Titan, like a super duper old set of gods with the Greeks,
Yes.
has hydrocarbon lakes.
As in lakes of oil.
Yep.
Oh, I just saw the American spaceship blasting off.
Yeah, exactly.
If there was ever a reason that was going to make Trump give NASA more funding.
Yeah. So there is a caveat to this story in that we kind of knew that there were hydrocarbon lakes there, methane ones already,
Yeah.
but they've disappeared.
They've disappeared.
They've disappeared.
The methane's floated away?
No one's really sure. They think they evaporated due to either heat or maybe have been frozen over or something. But they've ceased to be visible.
And these are the on Titan.
Mm.
Is it? Do you think it's one of those where, because that presumably takes so long to orbit the sun, that when it gets closer to the sun, they evaporate, and then they re-solidify or re-liquefy when they get further away from the sun, and it just takes, because of however long they take to orbit the sun.
It does seem to be a seasonal thing. So it's come out of you may remember Cassini.
Yes, Cassini. I remember Cassini.
Rattling off recently.
Yes,
that's the scientific term for becoming defunct. So yeah, it's actually analysis of the Cassini spacecraft's data.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. We've got NASA's funding secured for the next few years at least.
Yeah, just don't tell anyone that the lakes are phantom.
That would be awkward if they got there. Suddenly realised they weren't there anymore. I have a question for you, Jack.
Oh, okay.
Do you think an artificial intelligence can be a fair judge in court?
Depends what you mean by fair.
As in, they will apply the letter of the law without bias or any other interference being in their judgment, and they will just apply the letter of the law.
They could be, doesn't mean they will be. And I think letter is probably a lot easier than spirit as well. Although maybe, yeah, I mean, providing you've got case notes from the last 100 years or whatever for it to look over and absorb while you're training whatever kind of neural net you're using, you're probably okay. I'm
not sure they will, because this is happening in Estonia, which is about 1.3.
Of course it is.
Yeah. I'm sure our many American listeners who may not be familiar with Estonia, it's a tiny country, about 1.3 million people.
It's not Russia.
It's not Russia. And they definitely don't like to be confused with the Russians. One of my favourite facts about Estonia is that they sung themselves free from the Soviet Union back in the 1990s, 1980s. I'm not quite sure of the date. But they kind of found their niche in internet companies. If I'm not mistaken, Skype started out as a Estonian company.
Yeah. I think TransferWise as well.
Yes, I think you're right. And they are big into their technology and internet, and have I think they have the fastest internet in Europe. But they have the government has a chief data officer who is 28 years old, which is quite impressive. And he wants the government to be as lean as possible. So he is using AI to streamline services, and feels that it could be applied to courts. At the moment, I think it's only going to be rolled out into small claims courts, and it's going on a trial run if they can get it passed. So yeah, they're going to start off with a pilot. But if it works, then you could have an AI deciding whether you have to pay your parking ticket or not. Along the lines of those ones where someone tries to declare their house a separate country and then tries to join the EU or something like that.
I would love to do that. I would love to declare my house independent.
What currency would you use, though? You'd have to go back to a barter state.
Yeah, we could just exchange pasta. I'm looking at our pasta jars at the moment.
Do you have a lot of pasta?
I'd say we've got a middling amount.
Although that being said, there are...
not too much.
There are, I think, San Antonio, Andorra and Vatican City are all technically countries, and Monaco are all technically countries that use the euro, even though they're not even in the European Union, and they all apply by all the European Union rules. They've always struck me as a bit of a...
Yeah.
I don't understand why...
I think they're listed as microstates in the EU.
But Monaco and Liechtenstein and places like that are still countries, and I'm sure very proud countries with wonderfully rich cultural heritage. But it just strikes me as really weird that they were, because they're old countries as well. It's not like someone went in 1990. You know what? I'm going to start my own country and make it a tax haven for a lot of rich people. They've obviously existed for a long, long time, and like France is responsible for the defense of Monaco, even though Monaco presumably attracts a huge amount of their rich people and then charges them no tax and just lets them gamble and have parties on yachts and things.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about Monaco or where Liechtenstein came from. But I know that Vatican City is not super old as a country, like in its current form. And then at the beginning of the last century, Mussolini was all like, I'm going to give the Pope his own stuff. Just a bit of Italy back, because I want him on side for this thing that I'm planning.
I love that you're calling one of the most significant events of the 20th century the thing.
I think people will get what we're talking about, won't they?
I imagine so. So,
and if not, write in.
Write in, yes. We're going to have a Twitter and a Facebook and a Reddit and a Bebo and a MySpace and a carrier pigeon.
If you do get it, don't write in.
No, write in. Engagement is what drives growth, I think.
And goats.
And goats as well. Actually, I did.
If you engage with a goat, they run.
If you engage with a goat, they run.
They do. Yeah.
What about the fainting goats? They just faint.
No. I mean, engage like you give them a ring.
They just eat it, probably, wouldn't they? They've been known to eat tin cans.
Yeah, and then they run away.
Warning to all of you who want to give your heart to a goat: don't do it.
Yeah, they'll just leave you in pieces.
I do have a fact about Liechtenstein that I really wanted to get in. Is that I think they've only ever fought in one war, and they had an army of 11 men. When they came back, they had something like 19 because they made some friends. So they're the only army in history that went to war and came back with a surplus of men rather than a loss.
That's amazing. That's an absolutely amazing fact.
I don't know when this was. I think this was probably in the early 20th century. I think they might have gone to fight some Nazis and just found some like English soldiers or French soldiers who were deserting or got lost, and they just thought, "Oh, we'll join Liechtenstein. That sounds like fun," and so they did. So yeah, interesting country. Definitely somewhere I'd like to go and look, just to say that I've been there. I also would love to have that. Apparently, you can rent the whole place for a night because it's only like 9,000 people.
Yeah, wasn't there a rapper who tried to do this? Like tried to rent the whole country for a video shoot or something?
Yes, yeah, I'm pretty sure there was. Yeah, and it's several million euros, but there are people out there who could afford it fairly easily.
But like, who do you phone up to say I want to rent this country?
I think he's not called a Grand Duke. There's only, I think Luxembourg is the only Grand Duchy left in Europe, but there is a prince. Maybe it's a Prince of Liechtenstein. They're still run by a royal family member who I presume is the man you go and talk to. I don't know if he has his phone number like up on his website or anything. He probably delegates. To be honest, he probably delegates event management like that to someone in his staff. Maybe the butler does it or something, but. Yeah, presumably you go and speak to the royal family and they give their permission or not.
What's a Liechtenstein accent like? I don't think I've ever heard anyone speak on like radio.
I guess
Liechtenstein.
between Swiss and not Swiss.
Are you also struggling to picture the other borders? Because I am.
Well, no, because I'm pretty sure it borders Switzerland, Austria, and maybe a little bit of Germany. But the Swiss already speak a weird version of German, so I imagine. And I honestly don't know the regions or the accents well enough to be able to say, oh yeah, it'd probably be a Western Austrian accent mixed with a High German Swiss accent. So I honestly couldn't tell you, but now my life's ambition is to meet someone who meet a Lichtensteiner, which I presume is what they're called.
For some reason, I am imagining like a really, really accentuated Swedish accent.
Why Swedish? Are you just thinking of the Muppet Chef?
Yeah, that's exactly who I'm thinking of.
Is that just your default for every European accent that you don't know?
Yeah, I mean that's what got me this far.
I remember watching a video of this guy who spoke 11 languages and was going to Oxford to study 2 more, but he spoke Dutch and Afrikaans, and he said they sounded more distinct to him than, I think it was something really like Greek and Italian sounded more similar to him than Dutch and Afrikaans, and it wasn't the vocabulary, it was the tone. It was something like the Dutch come across in a very I honestly can't remember what words he used, but it's something like they're very laid back, whereas Afrikaans is very fast paced and very urgent. It was some kind of thing like that, but it just really surprised me because they're obviously, Afrikaans is practically Dutch in a lot of ways, but according to him they sounded very, very different, whereas other languages, it was 2 other languages that you'd think, oh, they wouldn't really be that similar, but apparently he could very easily get mixed up between the 2 of them.
I mean, it makes sense with like the distance involved. Like South Africa's quite a long way. Now that I live abroad, I kind of wince when I hear British accents.
I wince when I hear most of them except my own, because I'm a horrifically arrogant snob, including I lived in Yorkshire for a while and do not like most Yorkshire accents. I'm from over near Manchester and Liverpool, and I don't like the Liverpool accents, I should say, because I think there's a few around there. I hate the northeastern accents like Geordie and Mackham and things like that, but southern accents, where I've never lived and I'm not a southerner, but I can tolerate those accents. I quite like those accents. So yeah, I'm a terrible
I quite
person.
like the Yorkshire accent. I think it's quite nice, but I do wince when I hear like English in general abroad. But as soon as I'm back in the UK, I'm all like, oh yes, this is where the accents are, and this is where they should stay, and they should never leave.
Do you wince when you hear the accent, or do you just wince when you hear what they're saying? Because they're normally saying something. I imagine they're normally saying something like, get me another beer or something equally, because a lot of the English people you find abroad, or the English people you notice abroad, are very loud.
Oh, yeah, but
Lager
then
louds,
I'd be
for want of
wincing
a
when I
better
heard
word.
Americans speak as well.
Oh no, Americans I always find funny. It's great. You get a lot of them over here, as you can imagine, trying to track down their families, and it's just hilarious.
Do you get more Americans or Brits?
I've noticed the Americans more. I don't think you get many Brits. Man, we've completely digressed from... So I think our conclusion here is that Liechtenstein is a strange country. And if you're in Estonia...
that's what we were talking about.
Yeah, but I did want to bring up a wider point about this, actually, because there's been a lot in the news, in the news recently about the fact that we can't really have, as much as AI is meant to be purely logical and devoid of emotional and external influence, unfortunately the way they're built and created, they learn
by example. And if the example is biased, then they'll be biased.
Yeah, and they're typically written by middle-class white programmers as well, who have their own biases. And, a lot of these are unconscious. I imagine there are AIs out there that have been programmed to be deliberately racist, but I imagine a lot of them aren't deliberately, but they don't take into account the numerous and diverse factors affecting so many different people's lives. And so that is a major problem. So I think that was the big worry I had about a judge or an AI judge, is that, if the person who's programming it kind of thinks that poor people should just save money or work harder, then that's probably not the best thing for an AI to have as its background when it's making judgments on people, for petty crime and parking
I think a
tickets
lot of
and things.
it's going to depend on the culture of the individual country as well. Say, I have no idea how Estonians in general feel about parking fines, but I can imagine that they might collectively have a slightly different view on parking fines to, say, the way South Africans feel about parking fines, because they haven't had a whole lot of cultural overlap over the last century, and the car's not been around for much longer than that. So, yeah, I can imagine that the individual country needs a different set of cases to be training its AI on, because that's basically how it learns. It just gets like a bunch of problems, and then if it gets them all right, then they're all like, yay, here, have another 100.
Well, that was the other issue, because Estonia, I think Estonia is a fairly young country. The culture's been around for a long, long time, but the state as it is a fairly young country. I don't know whether they use Russian Soviet case law, but even if they do, that's obviously a very different system to what they're under now. And again, the risk that we've seen going back is, they probably use a civil law system, so it's not as based on case law as the common law systems are, like the UK and Ireland and the USA. But I imagine even if, it'd be terrifying for an AI to use British past case law, because, gay marriage wasn't a thing, and typically, given it was stuffy old white judges and still is, that's again going to have a lot of bias coming in from there. And the last thing I want is an AI quoting Latin at me when he's telling me he's going to throw me in jail for 6 months. Yeah, so I think at the moment they're using it to streamline simple parking ticket cases and things where it's very much the facts are the facts, and it's really whether the person can bring has an actual case for an appeal. And I don't think it's going, even if there is a mistake, it's not going to be the end of the world. I'm hoping it doesn't expand into, deciding whether, I don't think Estonia has the death penalty anymore. I'm pretty sure they don't, but I hope it doesn't end up going to, Texans adopting it so that they can send more people to the chair quicker and have it as kind of a, no, robot did it, it's unassailable, it can't be appealed, because that's kind of the slippery slope that I'd be tentatively worried about. But it is very cool, and I think Estonia is a very cool country that it is, when so many places are, in Ireland and in the UK, we're still buried under bureaucracy and paperwork and things like that for the government. It's great to see a country where I'd love to just go and just be like, yes, I can vote on my phone, and I can sort out all my healthcare on my phone, and I can do my taxes on my phone, and everything is just automatic and streamlined and done really, really efficiently, and it would just be really, really nice.
Germany basically has this.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of...
Still need to visit Germany.
Never been to Germany. Oh, we need to make a trip out of this.
I'm sure you react with shock and horror every single time this comes up. I think you're still just amazed that I haven't actually been. So yes, I still haven't been. Berlin has been recommended to me by yourself and so many others so many times, and is definitely on my to-do list. But the closest I got, I think I drove through it on a school trip. No, we probably drove through France, actually. I'm not sure if we ever actually made it through Germany. But I also spent about half an hour there in Munich airport running between flights because I was going to Belgrade in Serbia.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I've been to Serbia.
You've been to Germany. You've been to Munich airport. You've been to... It's like, I've been to Turkey because I've been in Istanbul airport.
But I didn't do anything in Munich airport. Like I didn't even get to stop and look at the shops or anything. It was literally running from one plane to the next. Okay, well, we're going to go back to an AI story now, because no, not quite. We're going back to AI because as I think this is a very, in fact, we probably should have done that. This could have been such a good tangent or segue, but we talked about actual segues instead. So this is still kind of a segue from the segue.
Did you know, in 1396, Vaduz, the southern region of Liechtenstein, gained imperial immediacy.
What does imperial immediacy mean?
It became subject to the Holy Roman Empire alone.
Where was the rest of Liechtenstein ruled by?
Good question. Different houses with German names like Habsburg.
Fair enough.
And Zaringer and Savoy.
Very good.
Yeah.
Can I talk about AI now?
Oh, absolutely.
So this story is actually, it's a little bit old, but you probably heard about Google forming an AI ethics council because obviously a lot of people are concerned.
I did not hear about this.
Okay, well, they decided to form an ethics board of external advisors who would ensure that they are developing AI in an ethical way and aren't kind of creating the next Skynet. And it was dissolved after, I think, about a week. Because one of the people they included was Heritage Foundation President Kay Coles James, who has openly espoused anti-LGBTQ rhetoric.
Oh, that's bad.
So a lot of people had an outcry. Yeah. But the thing I think is interesting here is surely what they're either... I suppose what Google could be accepting is that they will bow to pressure and they kind of just wanted to form this and have it go, they kind of get the credit and be like, oh, yay, Google's doing something good, and then just kind of get on with things. And obviously they didn't, I think there's so much negative publicity around it, they clearly felt that they couldn't go on with this board. But I think it could also point to the fact that the world, and certainly Google, has kind of decided that being anti-LGBTQ, despite what the Sultan of Brunei thinks and what a lot of countries around the world think, is simply unethical now, and I would completely agree with that.
It's really nice that that's finally become a status quo, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, the USA still has a lot of people, a lot of legitimate groups who espouse that kind of thing. They still have pray the gay away camps, and they still have. It's still very unusual to have LGBT politicians. I know the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, whose surname I can't pronounce, Pete Buttigieg. I can't pronounce his surname, but he is an openly gay mayor. He is running for president in 2020. 2020, yes. He's got he's giving himself a long lead in time. No, he's running
secretly
in
2020.
He's secretly. Well, that'd be good, actually, because I think that's one thing that is underrepresented is people from the LGBTQ background or LGBTQ
and
group.
artificial intelligences.
Yes. Can I just say,
absolutely,
and with no offence meant, but LGBTQIA+, can you please come up with a term that just, because it's a mouthful, and at the one time...
What are the extra letters for? I get what plus is just anyone else, right?
No, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual,
yep, with
queer, inquisitive or inquiring, asexual, and then plus includes everything else, or other minority sexualities. And I was having an argument about this with a friend.
What's the difference between queer as opposed to gay and lesbian?
I'm not
I don't
entirely
actually know.
Sure, if I'm honest.
I don't know anything about this.
Yeah, I honestly couldn't tell you, and I don't want to try and make a guess for fear of offending someone. But I'm kind of... I think I was having this argument with a friend not too long ago, and I was kind of saying, what, can we just move to the point where we don't need that? Can we just accept that people are people and sexuality isn't really a thing? It's just you're attracted to who you're attracted to, and that should be fine. Like, I don't like to call myself straight, even though I've only ever been attracted to women, because it's not that I've been attracted to a sex, it's that I've been attracted to specific people who all happen to have identified as female, I suppose is the way I'm putting it. And she, the person I was kind of having the conversation with said, well, you know what, you still need these groups because they are still a minority, they are still oppressed and receive a lot of prejudice even within their between the groups, so it is really important to have this group that is still fighting, this activist group. And I was like, yeah, fair enough, but can they please have a name that is just easier to say? Because it's just, especially when it misses out so much, because sometimes you see LGBT, sometimes you see LGBTQ, sometimes you see LGBTAI+. There just needs to be, I think, a single umbrella term that is just easier to say, and that's probably a lot of people are going to get very angry at me, but I'm sure there must be an inclusive word that we can come up with that includes everyone who is from I suppose I think the correct term is minority sexuality, and that they can all kind of get behind, because I just think that would really help their cause as well.
I have a segue, which is that Calig, which is like the Latin word for boot, and the Latin diminutive for like any word is eula, so Caligula actually means bootykins.
Bootykins?
Bootykins, yeah. Like a diminutive form of boots. His name was actually given to him after he was... because he used to wear little military boots as a child that I think he was either dressed up in or just took a shine to. But yeah.
Wow.
So that's my Caligula fact. Name actually means bootykins.
I like it.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
like it. What was Emperor Caligula famous for again? Was he the mad one or one of the mad ones?
I think he was the one who is apocryphally said to have made a horse senator, but he was kind of difficult to work with.
Yeah, that's it. I think he made a horse senator, his favourite horse senator. I think that's why I'm familiar with his name. I have, I think, one more story. Is there anything else you want to discuss? Do you have any more stories for us?
No. I mean, we could talk about Liechtenstein some more.
I've not looked up Liechtenstein actually. I don't have any more Liechtenstein facts. I'm trying to think if I have any just off the top of my head, and I honestly can't think of any. Have you looked up some more?
Well, during the thing last century, Liechtenstein was officially neutral.
How did it stay neutral? I mean, they had an army of 11 men.
I mean,
was it just that the Nazis didn't bother going there?
I imagine it was just out of their way.
Had no strategic significance.
Or they just forgot about it.
Right, I actually have two more stories. There's one really quick one that I want to mention, which is that as we've had advances in rocket technology, they've started sending up multiple satellites at once.
Oh, is this a microsatellite story?
Yes. So they did a launch of a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket and had 64 satellites on it. And they sent it up and everything went very well, except the Air Force sent up, I think, 12 of or they sent up 19 satellites, sorry. And they can't identify them because they didn't give them any... They don't know which one is which because apparently they didn't give it a specific... serial number or anything. So they have 19 satellites up there and they know they're all up there and they're all working. They just don't know which one is which. So they can't track them properly.
That's such a wonderful mixture of success and total failure to plan. That's such a great mixture of like, oh yes, look what human beings can accomplish. Oh, whoops.
They're just like they have these 19 satellites. Okay, we think that one belongs over to General what's his name, and that one belongs to that company, but we're actually not sure.
So are these military satellites as well? Because that's amazing.
No, I think most of them are commercial satellites, and the Air Force are just the ones responsible for kind of keeping track of them. But I mean, there could be some military satellites in there as well. So someone is, instead of getting WhatsApp messages, they're actually getting missile codes for the nuclear arsenal hidden in America somewhere, which is slightly terrifying.
That is terrifying. I remember reading recently that the US military controls like less than 5% of US federal land. Like almost all of it is under the Parks Commission and the Bureau of Land Management.
I can well believe that. When you actually look at America, because it's just such a vast continent, it actually has very few people in it, and it's not very built up at all. I think in one of those Bill Bryson books that you were reading, he says that was back in the 90s or whenever it was, but only 2% of America was actually classified as built up. So yeah, I can well imagine vast majority of it is just privately owned farms and the parks are just gigantic. So yeah, I can well imagine that. But my last story, I think, is a really cool one. Yeah. It is Professor Damien Woods, who is from Monaghan, but is actually working at Maynooth University, and he has helped create... Maynooth is in Kildare, just outside of Dublin.
Okay.
So and he has created a computer that uses DNA molecules. He's created DNA molecules that can work together to perform the functions of a tiny computer.
Oh, that's nice. Like programmable molecules.
Yeah, so rather than using transistors and diodes, it uses molecules, and they've developed 21 algorithms that can perform a variety of tasks. So instead of it doesn't have electricity flowing through it, it's just the strands of DNA stick together in different ways in order to enact the tasks and kind of fulfill the algorithms. And I really like this story, partly because of the intro, because it ties right back. And the sad thing is, I didn't have to Google what DNA stood for. I knew it stood for deoxyribonucleic acid.
And that you're made entirely of it.
Yeah, and that is one of the random facts I remember from. I remember learning that in secondary school because there was a girl called Lauren who was really proud of the fact that she learned that. I just kept saying it at every opportunity.
I remember almost nothing about biology from school, like almost nothing. I remember like words like osmosis and phrases like crossing a semi-permeable membrane, but I don't have any like context for any of it.
Well, what are you going to use biology for? I say, as we have the largest measles outbreak in decades because no one knows how vaccines work or doesn't believe that vaccines work. But I was going to end on a happy note. Let's go back to the tiny computer, the tiny DNA computer. That's good.
Have you ever seen that GIF of like it's a protein that's walking up? What is it that proteins walk up?
Proteins walk up protein stairs.
That'll do.
Made especially for proteins. I think we should sign off here.
Please find us on Facebook. We are Not a Buffalo Podcast, and we're also on Twitter, Not a Buffalo Pod. You can find us on our website, notabuffalo.wordpress.com. Any comments or feedback would be greatly appreciated, and we look forward to seeing you all in the next episode. Take care.